Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Chamber partners throughout the year, presenting sponsor Kwantlen Polytechnic University, Scotiabank, the Vancouver Airport Authority, the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, WorkSafe BC, PLLR Lawyers, and the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan. We do have a number of elected officials here with us today, so I do want to recognize Alice Wong, Member of Parliament for Richmond Centre, Kenny Chu, Member of Parliament for Richmond East Steveston. Steveston, Richmond East. I was going to get that right. There we go. His Worship, Mayor Malcolm Brodie. City of Richmond Councillor Alexa Liu. And I also note Alexa is our ex officio on the Richmond Chamber representing the city, so thank you for that, Alexa. And also Councillor Bill McNulty. I also do want to recognize again our chair, Carolyn Robertson, chair of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as Executive at Large Connor Williams. Before I invite our sponsor up, Mark Lidstrom, to introduce the leader and say a few words, I do want to start with a few brief remarks myself. I've been on the job now just over a month, and I came from the BC Chamber, as you heard, and of course, this has been quite a year, to say the least. That's probably quite an understatement. We have got through the pandemic well. It's not to say that we should be doing victory laps or that it's over, but if you think about how important the last year and a bit was in terms of business resiliency, the BC Chamber of Commerce did a survey back in April, and I just want to highlight some of the numbers. 65% of businesses has seen decreased sales volumes. 59% have reported increased cost of operating, and 40% had to reduce their staff hours. It was a tough year that businesses like yourselves had to get through, and we got through it. We persevered, but now we're at the tail end here. We're hopefully at the end. And of course, just with that being said, back in April, I just want to highlight the fact that for all the challenges that businesses faced, they also reported 51% optimism, that we're optimistic about the future over the next 12 months. I can only imagine that number is higher now as we're into the restart plan. But what's important to highlight, and credit to the Richmond Chamber of Commerce before I got here, I just want to recognize the partnership that we developed with the city through the COVID Recovery Task Force. And it brought all the partners together, all the stakeholders together to talk about the issues, keep business up to speed, keep the community up to speed on what was happening. And what's important about these conversations here today that I recognize as well is that recovery is it's going to be a process. And there are lots of issues still on the tops of minds of business in terms of that increased cost of doing business that requires an entire effort from all of us. So having the city here, having the federal government, and it's important to recognize the federal government is more than just obviously our members of cabinet and the prime minister. Our parliamentary democracy has an opposition as well. And it's important for all our parties to work together. It's important for issues to be raised with the leader of the opposition as well, so that you know what's on the mind of business here in Richmond, so that when you go back to Ottawa, you can help create the right plans that allow our businesses to thrive. So it's great to have the city here. It's great to have the feds here. We'll continue to have the province at this table as we draft and come up with ideas that will support business growth and truly get us on that lasting road to recovery coming out of the pandemic. So thank you for being here, everyone. And with that being said, I do want to introduce Mark Lidstrom, who is the District Manager of Waste Connections Canada. Mark Lidstrom has been with Waste Connections, having established himself with the company in 2014. I don't know if that's correct, Mark. You said, nope, that one is wrong, right? You were with the company. Yeah, it's a lot more than 2014. His management career, of course, has been in environmental services that has taken him all over the country, from Kingston, Ontario, to the interior. I learned that was Penticton and Vernon, and of course now here in the Lower Mainland. And of course, like Mr. Otoole, Mark is also a veteran of our Canadian Armed Forces, having served in the Signals Corps. So thank you for your service as well to you, Mark, and to you, Erin. So with that being said, please do join me in welcoming Mark to the stage to introduce Erin Otoole.
Good afternoon, everyone. That was supposed to be my job. So yes, I've been with the company for 24 years, so a little longer than 14, but that's okay. I am the district manager for Waste Connections for both Vancouver and Abbotsford, and we're pleased to be here today. We're honored to be the title sponsor for this event. We are a waste hauling company, non-hazardous waste. We operate in 5 provinces and 43 states. We operate collection, processing, and disposal services throughout Canada and the U.S. Waste Connections has done a lot of investing in clean energy. We have the largest CNG fleet in Canada right here in the Lower Mainland with our Surrey contract. We also are starting to run electric trucks in the United States and in Alberta, which is very promising going forward. At Waste Connections, we have one slogan we all live by. Our banner is here, and it starts with one. And what does that mean? Well, it means one employee, one vision, one conversation, one relationship. Waste Connections values our relationship with the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber has always promoted development of cohesive communities with the goal of promoting a world-class environment in which we live, work, play, and do business. We would also like to thank Mr. Dan Baxter for the many years of collaboration with our company. Before I start with my last part of Mr. Otoole, it's funny, we just had a quick chat that we were in the same military base in the same year. I'm sure it was 1991. So that's a lot of good information there. First for his service in the military and his work with through Patriot Love Foundation. As a former military member myself, I think we can both agree we can never put too much support for our veterans and their families. Mr. Otoole's dedication to family and service to others is commendable and is recognized within our organization. One of my favorite quotes is, Erin was not raised to be a politician, but always a leader. And my favorite quote for leadership, and Table 1 here knows how dedicated I am to leadership, is leadership is neither a rank nor a title, it's a choice. The choice to provide care and protection for those whom we are responsible for. It is my honor to introduce the Leader of the Official Opposition, the Honorable Erin Otoole.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for your service and Waste Connections commitment to veterans, which you were describing to me. It is so good to be in a room with people again. It's so good to be in British Columbia again. Because when I was 13, I took the train from Toronto to Vancouver with my grandfather, a World War II veteran, to attend Expo 86. And that's when my love affair with British Columbia truly began. Now, 5 years later, I was back in Chilliwack at boot camp. Military boot camp wasn't as fun as Expo 86. You started with a haircut, back when I could get those. But I started a career of serving alongside exceptional men and women from all parts of this country, and that all started for me in Chilliwack and later some training in Comox on the island as well. But my most incredible memories in British Columbia as a kid from the suburbs of Toronto was in 2010 when I came out for the Vancouver Olympics. And while my wife Rebecca was working long and tiring hours in the International Broadcasting Center downtown, I was the lucky husband to go to many events and to explore the incredible way British Columbia hosted the world, including watching speed skating in the majestic Richmond Olympic Oval. Well done, Richmond. You made the world recognize Canada as our Pacific gateway here in British Columbia. You made Canadians proud. And British Columbia continues to be an important part of the heart of our economic future. I love BC, and it's so good for me to be here for the first time as leader of the official opposition, as we're beginning to emerge from a very difficult year for our country, and Dan alluded to that. I'm also proud to be joined by two exceptional members of my team, my good friend who I served in cabinet with, the Honourable Alice Wong, and my good friend Kenny Chiu as well, just two of our hardworking, dedicated Conservative members of Parliament from BC. Because as was said, leadership is a choice, and being part of a team and contributing to that team is a choice as well. And I'm also happy to be the first in-person guest that the Chamber has had in some time. It's another sign that there's hope on the horizon after many challenges this year. And this year has been particularly hard on our seniors, on our families, and on small businesses. And friends, Canada used to be a leader. We used to be champions. But increasingly under Mr. Trudeau, we've become a laggard. Late at the border, both at the first wave of the pandemic and later with the variants. Late on rapid tests, late on vaccines. A century ago this year, Canadian innovation, Canadian medicine gave insulin to the world, saving millions. But this year, in amidst a crisis, we had to rely on others for our vaccines. So from vaccines to investment to declining trade to high unemployment, under the Trudeau Liberals, we're falling further and further behind. The people of Richmond, the people of Canada deserve better. We need to see the return of Canadian optimism, Canadian ingenuity. We need to see the return of Canadian leadership, because the very future of Canada is at stake. Our country is at a crossroads, and soon, maybe very soon, Canadians will have to choose which path we want to take. One path with more debt, more small business bankruptcies, more job losses, and increasingly approach that pits region against region, sector against sector, and even in some cases, Canadian against Canadian. It's an approach that always seems to tear down the country. This is the path of more of the same of Mr. Trudeau, but also the NDP and the Greens. Or there is a different path, one being offered by the Conservative Party of Canada. A path that will deliver us to a Canada where those who've struggled most through the pandemic can get back to work. A path that will help communities and help bring people together. A path to build up the country, not to tear it down. This spring, I introduced Canada's Recovery Plan, a 5-point plan to secure our future after COVID. Canada's Conservatives will enact a jobs plan to create 1 million jobs in 1 year. We will rebuild the main streets in Richmond and across the country by assisting those struggling small businesses. 51% of them still have hope, right, Dan? We can provide incentives for people to rebuild, invest in struggling businesses, or even start new ones if there's vacancies. We will also tackle housing affordability, because many Canadians, especially families here in Richmond, some young families are being forced to give up on the dream of home ownership. So the federal government, working with all levels of government, working to build more homes, is one of the key long-term sustainable solutions to making housing more affordable. The second pillar of our plan will enact a new anti-corruption law to restore accountability and trust in Ottawa. From the multiple ethic breaches from the Prime Minister himself, the latest report was called Trudeau 3. They have to number the reports on the number of times our Prime Minister breaks the law. To cover-ups of sexual misconduct allegation in the military, cover-ups orchestrated or perpetuated by Mr. Trudeau, his office, and Minister Sajjan. And as a veteran, I've been profoundly disappointed in his lack of leadership. And therefore, Canadians are beginning to lose trust, not just in politicians. There's never been a ton of trust at times for politicians, but in our institutions, like the military, like the RCMP, important parts of our national fabric. We have to restore that trust. Our third pillar, the pandemic has deepened Canada's ongoing mental health challenges. And this is seen firsthand, particularly with the ongoing opioid crisis. Nearly 500 people have died from opioid overdoses in BC in this first quarter. For too many families, it's the pandemic of tears amid the COVID pandemic. I know how important these issues are for Richmond, and there's a way for us to work together to make progress. And there are signs of hope that we must build on. The new Foundry, British Columbia app has helped connect youth in Richmond to mental health and addiction support. We need to create and support more solutions for mental wellness so that those battling depression, addiction, and their families trying to care for them know where to turn. Conservatives will introduce a Canada Mental Health Action Plan after the pandemic to boost funding partnerships not just with the provinces, but with nonprofit groups on the ground, tackling challenges in communities with respect to mental wellness. And we will create a nationwide 3-digit suicide prevention hotline so that consistent help is available everywhere in Canada and that we offer hope to our fellow citizens. I'm really glad to see the City of Richmond endorse this initiative, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Liu, for your leadership championing mental health. For the fourth and fifth pillars of our plan, we will ensure that we build security and capacity in this country, that make sure Canada's never again unprepared for a crisis. We will also try and tackle the immense spending and deficit, the $500 billion being put on the shoulders of our children and grandchildren. And John, we will also tackle Justin Trudeau's runaway inflation, which is making the cost of living further and further, particularly for our seniors. So you can see we are the only party that has offered a recovery plan. Leadership is about a choice to have a plan for a brighter people, for those you care for and live with. And as a military veteran and a former leader who worked on things in the private sector, including trade in the private sector, I want to restore our reputation on the world stage as well. This will mean addressing Justin Trudeau's numerous global failures and his ongoing naive approach with respect to China. As I've said many times, Canada must open its eyes to trade opportunities around the world, particularly with developed democratic economies. And we need to be clear-eyed realists with countries like Communist China. Canada's Conservatives will continue to call on the Liberals to expand eligibility criteria and develop new pathways so more Hong Kongers can come to Canada. Members of my own family just returned to Canada from Hong Kong last month. There are hundreds of thousands of Canadian citizens there, and I've personally visited the Sai Wan Cemetery in Hong Kong to see the graves of brave Canadian soldiers who defended Hong Kong during the Second World War. At the same time, we have to be crystal clear that our criticism is with the Chinese Communist regime, not with the Chinese people or the country of China itself. And this is a very important point for me as a political leader to make. China is an ancient country with a rich history and inspiring art, culture, and traditions. Canadians with Chinese heritage, or those who've immigrated recently from China, should be very proud of these traditions. Our shadow minister of Foreign Affairs, Michael Chong, is very proud of his heritage of his father who came to Canada from Hong Kong after Canadian soldiers sacrificed to defend it when he was a young boy. So when myself, Michael Chong, or any of our colleagues challenge the actions of the communist regime in Beijing, it relates to profound concerns with the political ideology of communism and its role in the erosion of rights, liberty, and dignity. Our concerns are with ideology and actions, not with people or with geography. Since COVID-19 began, there has been a dramatic rise in appalling incidents of anti-Asian racism and hate crimes, particularly here in the Lower Mainland. Those incidents go against everything we stand for as Canadians, and Conservatives will help lead efforts to fight it. Alice Wong, Kenny Chiu, and Nellie Shin, 3 of our MPs in the Lower Mainland, are leading the fight to stamp out such acts and attitudes. We will also make Indigenous reconciliation central to our leadership as a government. The trauma and emotion that has gripped our country following the confirmation of graves in Kamloops and at other former residential sites means we must act on the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I will partner with Indigenous communities to act and to make progress together. In fact, we can look to a great symbol of the Musqueam First Nation for inspiration. The Musqueam spindle whorl is an iconic work of Indigenous art that comes from the great weaving tradition of the Coast Salish peoples. Visitors to BC, including this morning for me, can see this when they're welcomed by Musqueam artist Susan Point's magnificent spindle whorl named Flight. That's at the airport. A spindle whorl was used to weave and bind together individual fibers into a strong, single strand of wool. As Canadians, we need to harness our emotions, our frustrations, and bind together with our First Nation partners to heal, educate, and grow as a country. Out of the strands of many tears can come a singular and resolute commitment to reconciliation. Our Canada Recovery Plan can get people working again after COVID-19 and tackle some of the inequalities we need to address. The decisions we take in the next few years will define Canada for this generation and for the next. Canada cannot afford more of the same from the Trudeau government and the NDP, Bloc, and Greens who have propped them up at every stage. As we recover from COVID-19, it's time to be champions again. Champions for unity, for excellence, for prosperity. It's time to build Canada up and not tear it down. It is time for real action and not more empty words and scandals from Justin Trudeau. The Conservative Recovery Plan will get the economy back on track in Richmond and across Canada. Together, we will secure our future.
Thank you for listening today, and thank you for supporting us with our sponsors. Please go to depictions.media for more information and click on our contact link and let us know how we can help bring your story and help bring us to a better world. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.